In this lesson, I'm going to show you how to create a brand new element within your HTML. So here we've got some typical elements. We've got a bunch of buttons here, and maybe if we click one of these buttons, we want to start creating some brand new elements. So let's take a look at how we would go about doing that. So the first thing that we want to do is add an event listener to the element. So we need to identify that element. So document, and we're just going to do get element by ID to keep things really simple and straightforward. So btn1, and we'll attach it to this first button. And what we're going to do is add an event listener. And so that event listener we're going to add in as a click. So once we click that first button, we're going to run maybe a function. So I'm going to add in just that myFun, and I'll create a brand new function for there. So it looks like, again, we're running out of space, and I like to try to keep it on one line there so it's a lot more visible and easier to read. So here's our function myFun. So whenever we click, we're going to send it over to this function, and then this is where we're going to create those brand new elements. So this is kind of like our element factory, updating our HTML and adding in code. So the first thing that we want to do is set brand new element. So maybe I'll do new L or something like that, and document. So there, again, we're using that document object, and we're using the function to create element, and this allows us to create a brand new attribute node, and then it returns that value. So let's create an h1 tag. So the next thing that we want to do is we actually want to add in some content into that element. So maybe we'll do something like new content, and again, going into that document object, we're going to do create text node, and this gives us the ability to add in some text. So new h1 tag. So that's going to be the text that's contained within that h1 tag. So now we just need to do a combination and figure out where we want to place it within our web page. So we want to combine both of these newly created, so the attribute and then the text node. So we want to add in this child, this new content child, into the new element. So the way that we do that is new EL, and we use append child. And then now we select that new content object. So now we've got this newly created h1 tag with content in it called text within it saying new h1 tag. So now we need to figure out where we want to position it. So I've already got this output here. I've got nothing in there. So maybe we can simply just add it under output. So output, and we're going to do that same append child, and this time we're going to append output with new EL, and just see how this turns out. And maybe we should console log just to make sure that everything is firing off correctly. So myFun, and I need to quote around there. And we'll see how this turns out. So let's refresh and see what happens. So now whenever we're clicking, and before we continue, I need to make a correction here, because this should be create element. So we're not actually creating an attribute, we're creating an element. So just going to go back now into the code and refresh it. And now we see that we are able to create those h1 tags above it. So now whenever we click, we're creating a brand new element with an h1 tag. When we go into the source code and we take a look at what's available within the source code, we see that we've got a whole bunch of these h1 tags, and as we click and open up that source, we see additional tags being created. How you create brand new elements on the fly using the DOM via JavaScript. And of course, there's a whole lot more that you can continue to do and you can work on using all of this different functionality. So we've just done some combination here. We've got an event listener. We can also have any number of different combinations of these event listeners, these triggers, triggered by user interaction, and then having something dynamically happen via JavaScript. So all of this and a whole lot more is available via the DOM. And of course, one of the starting points to working with the DOM is to maybe list it out. Use your console dir, and list out all of the available document information, and then work through that, make changes, updates as needed, including adding elements, updating styling, and a whole lot more. So this is all available within the console. So take a look through and see what you can make happen using JavaScript and the DOM together.